Let's have that in the front or back of our minds as we talk about each page. And to, on Marianne's suggestion, let's start with the public on, and we only have one mic, right? This sounds good, though.
Yep. On page 19.
We're looking at pictures, right? Okay. I don't recall this, but I guess it was here. As you might imagine, being a traditionalist, the second picture, I think when we had talked about design guidelines, we had talked about not only neighborhood, but village character. And I recognize that scenic is pretty much all modern now. But I hope that we can look at not just neighborhood, but village character, and those houses don't appear to me to be our village.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. I would like, as much as possible, for the pictures to reflect the old Carmel styles. The one on the right seems particularly a little hard to put into that shoe. So I do agree with Carol on that.
We're keeping it the public.
Go this way.
Public for this. If anyone else has a comment, you don't have to comment. No pressure.
Yes, they do.
So back to the steering committee. So we're bringing it back to the steering committee. Doug, do you have any comments?
No.
Does anyone else on the steering committee have a comment? Don has a comment.
Wrong page numbers documents.
Okay, just get a new one.
For fitting structures into its neighborhood context, I'm not sure about that, but I would think that we've talked about foreground plantings and so forth, which really show the absorption into the forest. This particular image doesn't do that for me.
I agree with Don. If you're going to show scenic, then this is not a great photo as far as I'm concerned. I just,
Okay. That's the comment? Okay, and Marianne?
I said
I know, I heard that. I'm teasing.
Agree with Don.
Marianne, thoughts?
Yeah, I was just trying to gather my thought. When it says in the neighborhood context, I think you need to show a larger streetscape. Because if you have only these two photos, buildings, and both of them are very different, and one doesn't relate to the other, so I don't see that reflects a context at all. There's no context here. There's just two houses.
Okay, so look, this is a good discussion because I think that the context that we all live under is the forest. That's the context, period. But
there's also a built environment.
That's my next comment. So because we have that forest stuff dealt with in the first couple chapters, the question is, what are we dealing with in chapter 3? If we're dealing with neighborhood built context, then we have to show relationships between buildings, I think. Now, of course, it's better if there's vegetation in the foreground. So, and it's also, just so everyone's aware, it's difficult to find, because we have, in most good places, good foliage. Then how do you see, this is also, the joy of Carmel, how do you see the relationship between buildings when they are properly screened by the forest? So, anyway, I totally agree with everything everybody said, but I don't know how to do it.
Just basically photograph at least one block and stitch them together, and then you have one streetscape, and that's your context.
Okay, that's like a month of work right there, but okay. No, I mean, I have no help, so I'm a little irritated, sorry.
Plus, this tree just does nothing for anything. I mean, it doesn't give you, it really doesn't, for me, give me the feeling.
I agree.
Of scenic.
I agree. It's going to be hard to find, and I'm open to submissions.
I'll give you one block.
Perfect, thank you.
I think we're also doing it with scenic at 13.
Mm-hmm.
And then the cottage straight ahead that Mitchell's used to have. And it's somewhat forested there. And there's
Sorry about that. My understanding is that we are trying to show relationships between buildings, and I think that right? I think number 3 is making a different point. If we want to make this everybody subordinate to the overall nature of Carmel, I think we've made that point in the chapter prior. So chapter 3 is about, as my understanding, is about how buildings relate to one another. And it's almost like you have to be able to see past the trees, past the landscaping for this chapter. So, everything can be about everything, or we can try to make a separate point in each chapter. So if you want to take on this exercise, Marianne, I'm very appreciative. You would have to show buildings, though, I think. Okay.
Doug's suggestion is a good one. And just for my final comment on this, these things don't relate to each other at all. I mean, they're not even good modern.
Okay.
No, I'll go take some pictures.
You'll go take some pictures. 3.1 and pass it on to the public down there? You want to just orient it that direction?
Let's come like this. Oh, that's-
That was just the cover page on the plan to redo the cover page.
So we're on page 20. So anybody have comments on anything on page 20 from the public?
Yes, if I may. The second photo, which is 3.1.1,
Yes.
what is it showing as wrong thing? It's hard to understand.
So this is a drawing from the old.
Not drawing the photograph on the left-hand
Oh, the
side.
photographs.
Photographs,
Sorry.
yes, which is with the red cross.
So
I mean,
we
what should it show to us, to all of the people looking at the guidelines? What's wrong in this picture? Maybe there is a should be better picture to show what's wrong.
Rather than simply maintaining required setbacks, so the upper photo shows a sort of collection of buildings around an open space,
Yes.
and the bottom photo shows two buildings right next to their maximum building line, so that there's no park-like space between them. Now, there's a bush in front that might help disguise the problem, but if you see the massing is a street wall with garages right next to one another. The two-story corner of the building's basically right on the same plane and right on the same sideline. That's the difference between 3.1 and 3.1.1. There probably could be another better picture of that, but is that?
I think also, Victoria, I think what the problem here too is that if you look at the top picture, it's like they coordinated their open spaces and because this to amplify the effect of open space. This landscaping, while it's nice to have landscaping, it's not very thoughtful, it's not coordinated because there's a shared open space between these two. It just feels like there's a big hunk of wall there. Yeah, no, and rightfully said. So I think that's probably the other part of it too, is there's not really thoughtful coordination between the two properties.
So what does the rest of the public think about these two photos next to one another and how they might or might not illustrate the? Yeah, I'm asking.
That was my comment. Yeah.
Anyone else from the public have
Sure.
thoughts about those two?
I guess when you look at making an open space between two houses, in Carmel, there are houses all crunched up next to one another. What happens to the houses on the left and right side of those houses? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
A while back, we talked about adding on to Maury's drawing and adding a third because it was hard for people to imagine, what do you got the third? But good question.
Is it possible that the footprints of those two houses in 3.1.1 are too large for the lot, that they didn't allow and leave enough open space? When you look at the boundary between them, you know, the lot
The
lines?
setbacks are probably okay, it's only a few foot side setback, so.
If you just move the camera to the left and you bypass that landscape monument there, you'd see in between the two buildings a little more.
Maybe.
So I don't feel like there's a huge groundswelling of opposition to these four things, but let's keep going public. Anything down to the bottom photos there? Anything on that? A stumper. All right, let's bring it back to the steering committee. Long arms. What's the group got to say about this 6-image collection? Is it overwhelming?
No,
Okay, tell me, what do you
that's
think?
rather disgusting. 3.1.1, I mean, it's a classic example of what we do not want to do. So it's a,
So it's
yeah,
good?
yeah, so that's very good.
Okay.
And it would be helpful, though, if it were a little bit bigger. But the house that is seemingly okay, you know, is right near me, right near where I live, and I go by it all the time. It used to be more vegetated.
Oh, you're trying with the
But-
bottom one now?
yeah, yeah.
3.1.3.
And if you saw it in the context of the street, it would, you know, it would look better.
So this is, look at the thing, divide a larger building into forms similar in scale to traditional village houses, placing some mass in a detached secondary structure if necessary to reduce the overall mass. So this is a
Yeah.
subdivided massing is what this is supposed to represent.
Well,
There might be better representations of that,
I think there probably are.
but any other?
But is this a bad one? I think one of the
No,
things
I
we should
don't
consider
think
is-
it's bad.
Yeah, so there's probably always gonna be a better something.
Yeah.
And so I
no.
think what we should really, if I can offer, we should really try to come to is this so terrible that it doesn't prove the point? Or is it good? Does it prove the point? I think Victoria's keying in on something that this picture relates to 3.1.3, which is not about neighborhood context necessarily. It's specific to how this structure's mass is broken up. So the comment on this one really should revolve around whether this is a good example of that or not.
Yeah, well, it's the roof lines that break it up. I mean, if you go by the house and you look at it behind the fence, you know, it's not really, to me, well broken up. It's just that the roof lines are so different that gives it the feeling that it's, you know, not one big
So
edifice.
what about the rest of the committee? Any thoughts about whether this is a way to break up a building's mass into sort of traditional sort of sizes?
Yeah, it's good.
Don and,
Well, it's just bad architecture, you know. I mean, it's like if we could, I was just thinking in town, because it's a good example of breaking it up, but breaking it up with 3 different roof slopes and a corner of an opening hitting the side of the eave, I mean, that's all not good.
yeah.
So I just wonder if this is a good example, if we, is there any, I was just thinking about houses in town, do we have a good example that's also, you know, better architecture than that what we have here? So that would be desirable, but it definitely makes the point, you know.
I think Mary Ann's comment is a good one. It's like, can we find a way to better represent this with better architecture? Because that's really,
Right.
that's a good
Would be
comment
nice
that we can
for-
work with.
And my comment to that is that, like, the little wimpy secondary garage roof is not a great, I don't think that's actually what's meant by an actual volume with
Massing.
intention. It's
Actually,
not
it says
enough.
Detached, and I don't see anything detached here, so that's the one thing that's missing from
Yeah.
this, is there's no detached.
No, I totally agree with
All right,
both
so we can
of
do
you.
better, we can try to
Yeah.
do better.
Okay.
All right, so back to the public, yeah.
And the one to the left, I think is just, I see the driveway, I don't see, like, we have plenty of buildings in town that are not broken up and that are just big giant boxes. That's what I think we should put here as a negative example for not breaking up a building into a smaller village,
this one-
village character.
This one's 3.1.1 though.
Yeah,
So this is tied to this one up here, the coordinating open spaces still.
oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's very confusing.
Yeah, it's
I
just
think it
it's
should
in the
have a
wrong spot.
negative
Yeah.
one for mass on the left side.
But we can move that. Tell me what you think about it as a representation for 3.1.1. And you might want to add.
Yeah, it's better than the other one because the other one has this big bush and I also didn't understand how it related to open space. So I think this is a good one to replace the one with the bush.
Okay. What do
And
you-
then we are just missing an image for
You
a
want a
big mass
negative for
bulky
3.1.3. And what is the, what do the rest of you all think about eliminating the one with the big bush? Which I think if the bush weren't there would be fabulous
Yeah, but it's
because
there.
it's so
But it's
stark.
there.
I know.
Yeah, cut it down. Just cut it
Chop it
down.
back.
Luckily the bush is there, otherwise it would be
I
worse.
know, we would be even worse off.
Sounds like a labor strike.
Yeah. But I would love to find one that doesn't have a bush, you know,
This
so,
almost is the one with no bush.
yeah, okay.
This
All right,
one's
so
down
back
there.
to the public for the next page, this is residential 21.
Page 21, I've heard that's.
I'm moving on.
I thought we weren't supposed to put garages in the front, in the front of the buildings.
Front setback, you mean?
Well, not in the setback, but they're stuck out in front, and I think somewhere, don't we say not to put garages out in front if possible?
We ask for a variety of stuff that's in the back, and stuff that's in the front, stuff that's in the setback, and stuff that's not in the setback, and stuff that's attached, and it's just all about variety.
There's a test basically the planning commission uses to determine whether or not to approve a garage in front setback.
Okay,
They're not, yeah, they are allowed.
they are allowed,
And sometimes encouraged.
And sometimes-
If
sometimes
there's not-
encouraged,
Yeah,
okay,
there aren't enough of them around.
okay.
Can you kind of explain that a little bit, because,
Let's let them wait on the photos first if you could. And I'm gonna also ask that you guys skip ahead to the next page while we're chatting. I know we're fascinating to listen to. But then you guys will be ready with your comments.
Yeah, yeah.
I think another issue that comes up, just to stimulate the conversation, is that most of this is text from the original guidelines. That's all it is. There's not a whole lot of newness here in terms of the concepts, et cetera. And sometimes there's a redundancy to the concepts. They're phrased a different way. So if I look at 3.1.5, this is talking about avoiding the canyon effect, but we don't kind of talk about that a little bit on the prior page.
Yeah, I wonder if that's redundant.
It's slightly different point, but it could be illustrated with the same photo, so I just wonder if, that's a whole other pass. You might not want to take.
No, let's not do that today.
Then we
Not
won't have to
today,
cut
but
the
I
bush
don't
down.
want to ever take it. I'm just saying it has to be consolidating themes that were never consolidated in the original. Okay, so no comments, I'm just thinking from the public. You guys love it.
Everybody's good.
Love
They
page
love it.
21.
Okay, 21's the winner. It was the steering committee thing.
What do you think, Don, about the images on page 21?
Sorry, I haven't got there yet.
So 3.1.4 is about staggering setbacks of the homes, and you see the one in the far upper right-hand corner is supposed to be, back. Some parts are forward on the street, some parts are backward on the street. I'm sure we never think the photos are good enough, but that is what that's supposed to illustrate. This is 3.1.5 is also a staggered, but of a side setback. I don't know that particularly, I feel like that might be better
No.
for 3.1.4. You got something way in the back there. 3.1.5 is what not to do in terms of a corridor effect. That is a very tight, I think that's okay, but that's my opinion. And then building mass, minimize building mass as seen from adjacent properties, as we got a no on the bottom one.
I have a question to the graphic. Isn't the setback line is shown here different, but doesn't in one street, do we have a situation like that in Carmel? Brandon, and the setback always the same?
The setback is always the same, but,
So why does it show different setback lines here?
which one, which? graphic?
In the graphic in
Okay.
3.1.4?
I don't think that's showing different
That's just showing-
regulatory
No,
setbacks.
that's just showing where they decided to put the house.
Yeah.
So, I see what you're saying though, because.
Staggered front setback.
Yeah, it doesn't
Is
show
somebody
15-foot
gonna
setback.
understand?
line.
Exactly, yeah, I think that would be important.
Okay, yeah.
Well, another way we could do
Because
is
what we are
just,
saying is that we are asking some people to give up some backyard space
Yeah.
for the benefit of the public.
Mhm.
Yeah,
right?
that is a little confusing, I noticed that too.
Yeah.
That's what Carol was saying too. I didn't know we could build on a property line.
well, we could rephrase this. It might not be the illustration that's wrong, because I think what you're discovering there, Marianne, is that we use the term setback to both mean a regulatory thing and also how far is the building set back. So we could just rephrase it and say, set back your building at different distances. There is no staggering of the setbacks. the regulatory setback is fixed. But we do want people to set back their homes at different, so maybe it's a
Just-
vocabulary.
yeah, just-
Stagger sign placement.
Yeah,
Placement, because if we
stagger
want
front
this,
placement.
an accessible document, then I think it needs to show where the setback line is, so people are aware that what we're asking.
Well, yeah, and that's another thing, we could just put it in, I mean, I don't really know how to interpret that on this diagram, like where it would be.
We can just put, we could have a little thing, just, 15-foot.
The furthest forward, right, would be the one on the setback line.
Or it could be, these could all be back, I don't know. None of them are forward of the 15-foot, presumably.
Is there a problem that there's no photo that goes to 3.1.7?
7, preserve access to light. I think that we had agreed earlier that if it just stands on its own and doesn't need to be illustrated, it's not hard to understand, then we would just not necessarily feel compelled to illustrate everything. That's a hard one to illustrate, I think, but it's also an easy one to understand as a sentence. So what are we saying about point 4 and point 5? Do we like the X'd out point 5? And do we like any of the check marked point 4 and point 5?
I like the X'd out 3.1.5.
Okay. But you're
And
not-
then the good 3.1.5. I was just trying to look at that. I thought I need to get a magnifying glass to make out exactly what's happening there.
Yeah.
But it does have the space, it does have the room that is part of this. Avoid the canyon effect, provide more open space, open side yard space when buildings on adjacent properties are 2 stories or close to the front property line. So that's a 2-story building, I take it back there.
Mhm.
Is it clear to everybody when they look at the photo?
No.
I have to say, I was looking to see if anybody had a magnifying glass.
Right,
I can't
exactly.
really make that image out.
I don't
In
think
fact,
it's
on the
good.
very right side of that, can somebody tell me what that is?
Are you
Projecting
talking about
out?
the white building that's set back in 3.1.5? Is that what
Yes.
we're confused about?
The image is very confusing.
Yeah, I don't like the image.
So again, let's try to be
It
as
may be
clear
good,
as-
but it's a very confusing image.
Yeah,
Let's
it's
try to
not.
be as clear as possible. Is this a good example on the street? So remember that this document was put together by volunteer photos that were in a file. So no one's going around and looking, trying to get the best angle. So if you think this is a good example, but you wish that it was at a different angle because the angle's confusing. Now, if you think
There
it's
you
a
go.
terrible example, then that's a different critique. So
This
should this
might be a
be?
good example. It
I
would
agree.
depend on if we could see it better.
So this should be reshot so that we can see the different staggering setbacks. Is that what we're thinking? Marianne, what
It's
do
a
you
more
think?
clarified image, yes.
Mhm. What do you think, Marianne? Would it be okay if it was reshot and we could actually see? Because again, this is mostly professional photographer Ian Martin going around going chick, chick, chick. He said he was putting his camera like out to the
I
side.
think we know that, okay, we're just for time's sake.
Uh-huh.
Are these 2-story buildings that we're looking at?
This
on
one
the
looks like a
Xed out?
2-story building to me, the white one.
Okay, then maybe we should shoot it backwards, so it's the
So you'd like to
canyon
reshoot it, is
effect
what
in-
you're saying?
yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then what about 3.1.6?
What is the 3.1.5 above it supposed to represent?
I don't really
I
get
thought that's
it.
the one we were talking about.
Oh, I thought we were talking about the down below, the Xed out one.
Which one? 0.5 X'd out?
3.1.5 Xed out was
That's
the
the one
one
you
that we
want
were
reshot?
talking, I thought we were talking about that one. What did
Well, I
you
thought
think
we
was
talked-
confusing? Which one?
3.15 was the one.
Let's go
With the
from
green
1
check
to
mark?
Yes.
for
Okay,
starting
yeah,
at
I
the
don't know
top.
what that is supposed to represent.
I mean, can we just start at the top?
Let's start at the top. Let's start at the
Okay.
top. Let's start this page over.
Okay,
Staggering side setbacks, I guess.
okay.
Let's start this page over. We've discussed the one to the upper left. Let's start at 3.1.4, photograph with a check, which is supposed to represent staggering the fronts of the homes and the garages to frame outdoor spaces, avoid uniform alignments, and provide variety in the arrangement of buildings and open spaces along the street. So does 3.14 do that? Why not? And what would you like to see instead? Would you like to see another angle? Would you like to see another building? Would you like to see
Another
different
example.
trees?
Another example.
What are your-
This isn't good
Okay, this
for
is
the
just the
public.
steering committee right now. So 3.1.4, Don, this is what we're on, Doug, Mary Ann,
I have a universal comment.
okay,
This is 39 pages.
yes,
We're never
It's
going to get there.
59. The photos are too small.
okay.
Universal forming.
If you had larger photos, you might
We've got space.
differentiate the differences between
Tons of space.
the adjoining properties.
Yeah, we can go out, it's fine.
Yeah,
There's no,
yeah.
okay, that's well taken.
Because you can't really see, this is just not a good example, because there's not, there's just,
So let's try, I know it's hard, and it's hard to imagine this, but we have to imagine, and I know Marianne doesn't want me to say this again, these are snapshots that could be retaken from how far away they are, how close they are, what angle they're at, what they're showing, whether they're showing the neighbors or not. So when you critique, don't just say you don't like it. Say you cannot imagine it being better because it's the wrong building, or it has to be taken from another angle or whatever. So thoughts on that for 3.1.4?
The difficulty with the photograph, the upper right corner, is the focal point is the tree. It's not the structure.
Okay. If that were changed, would it be good enough, or do
Might
we?
be, but it's difficult to see the
Yeah.
purpose of the policy
Right.
when the tree is blocking the structure.
Okay, so a
Exactly.
different angle could work for that. Do you agree with that, Marianne?
Well, the first sentence does say staggered front yard setbacks of homes and garages to frame outdoor spaces. That's the intent. So our outdoor space is the tree, which I didn't think there was anything wrong with that in the middle, but I think the right side is missing of the building because we don't have it framing it, right? But other than that, it actually does exactly, I think, what the first sentence says.
So maybe a slightly different angle to the right so we can see how the building's doing the work
Yeah.
around the tree?
Yeah, but, I mean, I think it does do what it says it's supposed to do.
Okay, I like that way you phrased that, Marianne. It does what it's supposed to do. Okay, that's good, that's a good start. Now, we're gonna move to 3.1.5 with the white building in the back, all very hard to see because we're gonna blow all the buildings, all the pictures up. But this is about staggering side setbacks with adjacent properties to avoid the canyon effect. So here you have a building on the, and again, this is very hard to see because it's just a snapshot, but this is I can kind of see it in my mind's eye. It's a building that's forward on the left and back on the right, which is similar to what we show or illustrate in 3.1.4, the diagram. Could this photo or set of buildings have potential as an illustration of this concept? No, why not?
So I think this is on a different, the topography is very unusual up and down. It's not typical for the town that you have one house down and one up. There's very few areas in town that have that. So I just don't think it does what it's supposed to do.
Okay,
I agree.
so or we can't reshoot
Just
this one.
pick
We have to do it
another-
a different way. Yeah, so it's a no. Now, and here's another thing we can say to ourselves. Shall we not illustrate this point? Because, for example, 3.1.5 tells you what not to do. And sometimes we could just say to ourselves, just don't do this, for God's sakes. So that's a question for you too. When things are tough to find, when they're tough to photograph, whatever, do we want to say, no, we got this, we understand it, as long as you don't do the one that's Xed out?
I think there's a lot of good examples in town to demonstrate what's right. There is the David Allen Smith houses on Scenic, for example, that have that combined middle space and the nice staggering of the front and back. They're perfect examples.
I think they don't have the proper native foliage. But anyway, this is another issue that we run into, as we're showing.
The proper what?
Foliage, like sometimes, one of the very hard things about this is sometimes people's yards are filled with non-native, but I'll take another look at that and have someone look at it. But this was another whole screening we had to do because at an earlier conversation, we decided we can't find photos that have a glaring
Contradiction.
If it's a small contradiction, maybe, you know, framing things and pulling in because there's something terrible on the right.
Well, if you have a few of those
Yeah.
photos, I can make a few Photoshop hours available in my office. We can just take out the non-native bougainvillea, whatever they have in the
Okay.
yard, and that
Okay.
might help.
All right, so if we decide on a non-native photo, you'll take care of it. Thank you. Okay, 3.1.6, this is about minimizing building mass as seen from adjacent properties by avoiding long uninterrupted wall planes, placing tall buildings. Now, you guys are studying ahead, I hope, for the next page. So you flip to 22 because we're gonna call on you in a second. Minimize building mass as seen from adjacent properties by avoiding long uninterrupted wall planes, placing tall building walls away from the property line, et cetera. Does this 3.1.6, if photographed differently, if necessary, illustrate that point? That's a yes from
Yes.
Marianne. Doug? Yeah?
I think we
Don?
should zoom out a little bit,
Okay.
give some more context.
Yeah. Okay, zoom out. Okay, now, the homework doers over there on the left side, on page 22, have things to say, I hope, about images left to right down on page 22.
Okay, I just want to make a note on the page before Brandon's comment that you can't stagger side setbacks. You can stagger front placement of a home or side placement of a home, but you can't stagger this. I just want to make sure we address that.
Right, but I think I know what's meant, but offset.
It's placement rather than setback, yeah. Okay, just didn't want us to forget that. On this page, 3.2, I know it's preserving views, but it's not, I mean, it's glaring from the house above, I would think, the white. It's not attractive. And so I don't think we want people with white roofs in front of us, do we? That's one question. And then another is, you know, I hate to see us go to all flat tops because we don't want to damage somebody's view, even though we need to listen to that. But I like the 3.2.1 view of how they get their views without having to alter the house per se to save the view. Because I think that low, what do you call it? Low pitches, thank you, are not as advantageous as higher pitches generally on a house. But I understand also there is the view issue. But I think that 3.2, I don't think we should have a flat white roof look as a good look.
Not sure that was flat, but it's certainly not.
Close to flat, yeah. It's one of those shallow pitches, yeah.
Okay, any other comments from the public on these four images on page 22?
Yes.
Speak now, or yes.
3.2, the first picture. I think it needs to be a two-story example, because typically two-story homes create the big issues with neighbors, not one story, in general. And I don't know which one, but just two-story. Two-story would make a better sense to me.
Okay.
Where it obliterates the view, yeah.
Any other comments from the public on these four images? Welcome, Nancy.
I could do an actual photo that represents 3.3, because my house does this, if you want a photo alternative.
Oh, the reasonable privacy one?
Yes,
Okay,
the 3.3 image.
please submit, Nancy. I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, back to the steering committee. Let's take it one by one. Preserve views from nearby properties to natural features. And remember, we can always eliminate. We can blow things up and make, if we think we've got it covered with just a few images. So 3.2, views to natural features from nearby properties. You've heard the public's comments. What do you think about this very shallow pitched roof, but you can see Point Lobos over the top?
Yeah, I think it shows the point, but at an expense, which is the rather stark,
like the way you-
unrelieved thing. I think that, I know this is a universal problem all the way through here, but I think the images, as far as possible, should always show
Good stuff.
all good, or as nearly
know,
all
it's
good as
so
we could.
hard.
Can we change the color?
Yeah, we can change the color.
I mean, just change the color of the roof.
Okay, sure, why not?
Yeah.
How,
No, I'm
how would you all,
serious.
how would you all feel if this, I'm talking about the steering committee, how would you feel if this was a dark roof? Because that would be very easy, talk about Photoshop, that'd be a very easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Sure.
Would it be okay?
This is the committee that wanted no artificial materials used on buildings.
Artificial photography?
Photographs?
Artificial
Slate
photography?
roof on it.
They're either authentic or we're phony.
I think that it would improve it a great deal. I think that the sin of this is that it is a very bland roof. And it is
Yeah.
not, it doesn't follow our other
The
roof
roof
guidelines.
But it has no plumbing vents, it's so good, you know.
It's so clean.
And
Yeah.
all over the roof that you see all
good.
over
And
town,
like
you know.
Anatoli's comment about the two-story thing, if we can find a two-story picture, that way we can point
Yeah.
to people and say, look,
Yeah.
here's a two-story house that
Mhm.
also preserved the view.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can do this.
that's a good,
Yeah,
that's a
that's a
good
good,
point.
It's a good assignment.
Good point.
Let me ask you, how close are we to not needing this photo at all? Because 3.2.1 is locate building volumes to make use of views, but not substantially block views enjoyed by others, keeping the building height low and the building footprint compact to maintain views over and along sides of properties. That's a very,
And the picture's a good one, the 3.2.1
oh, I know that, I took that one. That was my favorite for
Yeah,
this
that's a
page.
good one.
And you know this place, but what's interesting about this is I'm on the street and not a neighboring property. And so the one that we don't like as much appears to me to be possibly from a neighboring property. Again, I didn't take this, I don't know, but I don't know where it is. But I don't know.
I don't think so.
You don't think
Because
it's
I
from a
know,
neighboring?
well,
You know?
I know exactly where this one is.
No,
But
that
I
one I
don't,
know. I'm saying
you
this
know,
one.
yeah, but I know, but what I'm saying
Yeah.
is I don't recall this being anywhere near this.
No, I'm just saying that we're looking at natural features in both. In one,
Yeah,
we're looking
yeah.
at Point Lobos, and the other, we're just looking at the Pacific.
Yeah,
And this one is from the street, 3.2.1, and 3.2 could be interpreted to be from across the street. That's all. So, question is, do we need two photos? Or do we just like 3.2.1 enough that it could be 3.2, and we leave it at that? That is a two-story building, by the way, although not at the street level.
I think that's a good alternative.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, just get rid of the photo.
And then this,
We're gonna get rid of this
Yeah.
one.
and then 3.2, and this is something to consider in general, folks, is that like, if we have the sub points, and we can illustrate all the points
In one
at the
thing.
3.2 level, we don't necessarily have to go down to the 3.2.1 level, et cetera. So just throw it out there where the pictures could be bigger. Anything about the diagram, though? We got ahead of ourselves. The 3.2.1 diagram, steering committee, anybody?
That's a good one.
It's a good one.
I like it.
And 3.3 diagram, we still
Sure.
like that one.
And Nancy's gonna do a picture.
And yeah, we're gonna see if we have a good photo.
You can use the diagram, but if my photo's good enough, it'll be good enough.
You might want to show the neighbors throwing things at each other.
All right, so you guys have worked ahead, I'm sure, to page 23.
Of course.
Minimize negative impacts to surrounding properties. Again, maybe more illustration than we need. Maybe we're just trying to decide here.
To the architecture design.
This is
That,
That's the look first, I guess. So,
3.4.1, we're talking about integrating it into the building, but it's a brown fence up against a painted wall?
It's the electrical.
we're looking at the electrical.
Oh, just the electrical.
Just the meters. So these are utility services
Oh, I see, yeah.
So does that illustrate that point? And that's a question for you guys. And also 3.4.2, in cases where full architectural integration is not possible, eliminate the visual impacts by grouping, shielding, cabinets, walls, fences, plantings. And here you have an example of someone absolutely making zero effort, and then someone putting it and then someone putting it behind a fence. So, which is not quite integrated into the architecture, but it uses a landscape
Yeah,
element.
that still works, I think.
The 3.4.1, can we get a utility thing without the fence below? Because I was confused by the fence too. I
Yeah.
focused on the fence.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fence is very glaring.
We can find more than that too.
Yeah.
We could have a note on the side that says, "Don't focus on the fence."
Yeah, because the fence looks smooth, so
I'm
it's
trying to
not-
save some
yeah.
time here.
Neil.
Okay.
And we don't have, to the public, again, we don't have anything for 3.5, there you design a new building from that of nearby abutting properties to provide right. I'm guessing that the reason there's nothing here yet is that in the several hundred pictures that I had to work with, there wasn't one that didn't have a non-nays or that was, or maybe that.
What about a bunch of those white buildings with black frames? Aren't there a number next to one another these days?
Yeah, and
Again, nearby and abutting, finding stuff right next to each
Commissioner-
other.
Commissioner Dells was talking about 3 houses that were all the same style during the meeting. I don't know where that was.
Mission?
Is that Mission?
Mm-hmm.
That's the one that's proposed. There's a couple other examples already in the city of like triplets. where they're-
Yeah. Commissioner Dells was talking about it. Somewhere else that he saw that it seemed to work.
The Murphy cottages, I mean, the Comstock cottages, and then there's the ones
Three
where-
Sisters.
The Three Sisters.
Three
where
Sisters.
The three of us met
Yeah.
that time. Those
Mhm.
are the Henry Hill triad.
Mhm.
Case of 3 houses that are stark white.
Yeah.
There's Dolores. Is that covered in any of these pictures?
I guess what's odd about.
Were there 3 houses right next to each other?
Yes.
They're all black and white?
Oh, white, period.
With black trim.
12?
Victoria? Well, they're thinking about the homes. I have a couple comments on the pictures. The first one with, and you said you might replace it with a better bad example.
Yes.
Maybe it's a good idea to put on the right-hand side with a green check mark with a good example.
Good example.
Yes, and the trash cans, this good picture, maybe it needs to be taken
Yeah.
from a little bit distance and make cans less visible to show
Yeah.
that it's
Yeah, it looks kind of bad.
yeah.
We need to know that there's garbage behind it, though.
Yeah, maybe just a touch of blue line on top, but show that it's covered by the grape stake fence.
Or just, we have all kinds of covers that don't show the
That's true, yeah.
cans.
This is meant to be interactive.
3 white houses in a row would be an excellent one.
And do you know where that might be, though?
Yeah, that's a falling over fence with.
I
That's a
think
good,
between about
that's a good one.
11th and 13th. West side, Dolores. West side.
Did he bring back to us about this? So we, does everyone agree that we should have a good example of a well-integrated utility? Could be so good you can't see it, that would be good. The house.
Another arrow, it's right here, you don't see it.
So I don't know, maybe we can't do a good example, because that would be obviously. we could see
Silly,
it.
yeah.
But what about?
Well, but if you had the fence away, then you have it painted the same color. Wouldn't that be integrating?
There are, I'm just writing address right now, but there are these where you have the wall flash, the meter sits on the inside, and you only see the meter.
Yeah,
instead of
yeah, right, it has a
the
cover.
meter flash. So
Yeah.
that's the next big thing.
So is
in the 3.5, the words, is the word new material to the image that you're looking for?
For the design of a
yeah.
new building.
Design of a new building from that, that's what you're asking?
Yes, is the word new building, new, it's just two buildings that vary from the look from one to the other. Is that the point, or is the concept of new?
You're right, it doesn't have to be.
Okay, all right, I just
New in there.
didn't know if that was material.
Would be renovating the building.
Yeah, good point, good point.
So just
And
take out the
exterior
word new?
committee, I'm
Yeah.
bringing it back, so you missed this, Nancy, we're trying to divide it.
Yeah, I know.
Good. We're not
I know.
disciplined about it, but we're trying to
I know.
divide, now we're talking
Photos.
just, yeah.
I know.
Close public comment for a little second. So the variety of building material, anything about this sheet, do we want anything for 3.5? I haven't been able to find it. It wasn't in my pile to work with for this draft. So is there anything that comes to mind from the steering committee for 3.5, or do we not illustrate it? I think it would be nice if we could illustrate it.
Comstocks.
That's your white house thing, right? So I do have that. Is there anything else we want to illustrate something good? Or we'll just see what we come up with.
That's pretty self-explanatory.
All right, so you all on the left, so we're gonna head into retain and build, so now we're on the next section. Retain and build upon Carmel's established architectural heritage. The reason established is underlined because we're gonna have an architectural heritage section that you'll be able to link to. It's not like established, trying to emphasize it. So 4, does building 4 at the top left, well, I'm gonna ask you guys, you've looked at it, there's 6 illustrations here. All of them are, oh, because this is the first, sorry, this is
These
kind
are
of
the
the
top
first page,
4,
sorry. So this is the top 4 is about architecture heritage, and then 4.1.1 is to reuse existing buildings and their components, for example, restoring rather than replacing original windows. I have to witness 4.1.1 be rebuilt, so I know that's what they did. So what do you guys think about this title page series of the 4.0s, basically?
Public?
Yes.
Upper right-hand corner image looks very
Yes, it does.
formal.
Yeah.
And formal in the landscape. I know it's not necessarily landscape, it's not the building you're focusing on, but that pulls you into the formal and modern-ish look.
Yeah,
And we're talking about large windows too,
Yeah.
which we don't like.
right.
Yes.
Kind of looks like it's out of Sunset Magazine.
Oh, I'm in the wrong, I was looking at, you're on the upper right or the
Upper right-hand
Upper right.
corner
Upper
of
right,
this page
4
24.
panel.
Like
What
modern.
about upper left or the other ones?
They're
I
fine.
The
like-
rest are fine.
Yeah,
I like that.
yeah, they're fine.
And I think a lot of the other 4s are great, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe 4.1.1, the last one, small one picture, maybe it needs to be taken out. Because if you install nowadays metal clad windows from that distance, you will not see the difference between replaced or original. It says reuse existing buildings and their components, for example, restoring rather than replacing original windows. And that picture, I don't think gives a truth unless you know that building and that you know that the windows were restored. Because again, good quality windows right now, there is no difference from the distance, right? Right, and that picture is taken from the distance.
Argument again about using genuine materials as opposed to materials that simulate genuine materials.
Yeah,
I think we're a little looser on that than we were in the past. Remember, didn't we get into this about cement boards, cement siding that has a wood pattern on it?
Well, let's stick to this one right now, not that you're on a good point, but let's stick to this question of the public's input on these 6 photos. Any other comments on that?
Number 4, 3 swings out of the city limits.
Let me just make sure that the public's done.
Well,
Just
just,
the-
I agree with Nancy, I don't like the upper right one.
Yeah, upper right
And,
doesn't
and
work
I
for me.
agree with you too, that maybe 4.1.1 isn't really demonstrative of what's being said.
Well, it doesn't need even, it's a good paragraph, but it doesn't need any
Yeah.
visual example.
Yeah.
We don't need a
Does
visual
not
for that.
need.
That's understood by the words themselves.
But about this top right picture, which is modern, it's also part of the Carmel heritage, right? We know that there are some recognized modern buildings, and I mean, I don't think it's a wrong example. And maybe it's not the best per somebody's liking, but it's part of Carmel heritage.
Well,
Yeah, I want to say a good word about.
Okay, we're done with public comments, yes, okay, we're bringing it back to the steering.
Please say a word, Don, on this, on the upper right.
This emphasized just this one facade. Overall, this is quite an attractive house, quite appropriate house. If you saw, if the picture took more of, gave it more context, rather than seizing on this one image, I think you'd find it much more acceptable.
Is this house on,
It's just
Monteverde?
Jason former mayor's house.
Yeah, Jason Burnett's house.
Jason Burnett's.
Hmm?
Jason and
Oh,
Melissa
yeah,
Burnett.
now I know where it is. Okay, I was
Second.
confusing it with something else.
There's more of the house over here, there's quite a bit of the house right there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
well,
again,
why
this
don't
is
we
a
get a
photo
better
on it.
picture
It's
then?
done by a very good architect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We
yes.
have,
Who was the other
Can
Don?
we have a historic context statement, right? So shouldn't we have one example for each architectural style that is in our historic context statement? Is that what this is right here? I
So
see
this is just-
craftsmen, I think, I mean, they all have names, and it might be good to actually put a copy to each photo that relates straight back to the historic context statement.
Well,
We
I
need
think
a-
that's where this
a link.
established thing is going to link to.
Yeah,
is the
yeah,
context.
also, but I think maybe it would be good for people to see, okay, this is a craftsman, this is a Mediterranean style, and that links us straight back to the historic context statement. And then you have our really great body of mid-century work, whether you like it or not, that are historic buildings that should be represented there with
So you're saying the
something.
photos should be links, Marion? You could click on the photo?
No, I think you
No.
should just have a copy on it, so that the person who just reads the document
Yeah.
can see that this is an example of a craftsman style
Kind of
house.
say Mediterranean down here.
Yeah,
Oh,
or
okay.
craftsman, whatever, use the
So
same
name-
terminology
so-
like
Yeah,
in our
name the
historic
style.
context.
So
Yeah,
name a style in
Yeah.
this,
And use the exact same verbiage.
Wording,
between the
verbiage,
two.
yeah.
between the historic
Yeah.
context,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
And then the link is okay where it is with the established
yeah, I
historic.
think that's great,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. But
We
people
have-
may not wanna go into that depth.
We have some good examples of shingle-style buildings. What's the house that's on the corner? All shingles, beautiful house.
Down the street,
Yes,
We
probably.
have a lot of
Monteverde.
shingle.
Pardon me?
Monteverde and.
Could be.
We're sitting in one really good one. This is a pretty good example, shingled house.
So,
No, I think we ought to add a shingle house, and
Uh-huh.
there are some good examples in town.
Well, how many styles do we have listed?
It's,
oh, it's like
Yeah.
scores.
Yeah, but
so I don't know
I
if we can get
think,
them all, but there's
I
like,
think there should then be a page,
maybe,
because
and
that's
so
what
maybe
we have,
from maybe from a
know?
formatting
Yeah.
I
perspective,
do,
like this 4 lives by itself at the bottom, and this is just
And then just a
for
page of
picture
our
or something.
styles, I think that that's important. Not everybody may know what craftsman style is.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think this is a good question here, because obviously every other title page has been like 1 or 2 photos. And this one, we're now arguing, and I don't think there has to be anything doctrinaire about it, for putting quite a few as a title page, like just to show there's a sampling of styles in town. And so we might say that these we want to label them, we want them to be possibly as many as we can fit on a page, basically, and not make them too small? Is that the
Yeah.
guideline?
Yeah.
Because we can't put the scores of styles,
I
there's
would
no way.
substitute a shingle style for one of those stucco houses.
Okay, so sub out shingle for maybe, which one, Don?
Oh, the one right in the middle, I think.
The one that has the sort of
Isn't-
swoopy roof?
I mean, I don't know, Don, isn't this really the core of the design document, is the eclectic variety of styles in Carmel.
Yeah, we should
It
have
may,
some
it may,
This is steering committee, sorry.
it may be really okay to make an exception, have just 2 pages that represent what
All
is
of them.
in the
Yeah.
historic context
Sure.
statement. These are the styles in Carmel. you know.
Yeah.
This is our variety, put a copy on it, link to the historic context statement. And I think that's a really good, everything else keys into that statement.
So for statement 4, retain and build upon Carmel's established architectural heritage, we're gonna look at the historical context statement, and we're gonna do a 2-page spread
Yeah.
of as many as we can adequately fit on the 2 pages. Does the steering committee like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we're looking for quantity, we're looking for quality.
Quality.
Well, that
Yeah.
for sure, and, yeah, but we're gonna have to probably look at that again,
And
like which of the
representation
scores.
Of what's listed already in our context statement. And we, at the time, when we created the context statement, we had photographs for each style.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, we
we
did.
might as
One
well,
we're
we,
working on right
we
now.
can go ahead and just use those. You don't even
Yeah.
have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
But then it makes it right in here.
But we're not gonna be able to fit them on 2 pages, so we're gonna have to have some
I
selectivity.
see, okay.
We
Yeah.
will, that's all I'm saying, is
Just
that,
the best examples. Use
but I mean,
the
we're
best
not even gonna
examples.
be able to get all the styles,
Yeah.
there's no way, on
Maybe
2
just like the
pages.
most, we can just pick like the most
The
prevalent,
dominant.
the
Yeah,
most
the-
prevalent that we can pick.
Yeah,
fit on
the
2 pages.
dominant
Dominant styles, maybe we
Yeah.
can do.
Mhm.
I don't think we
And
can,
this one, the Jason Burnett house,
Mhm.
can we not get a better photo of it?
We
Or is
can-
it,
Yeah,
there's a lot of,
the difficulty
there's a
with
lot
this
of
one.
landscaping.
You can, there's other other mid-century ones that are already listed on the historic register. This one, if you go back further from the street, it's all covered by.
I know, it's all
Yeah,
landscape.
it's all landscaped, so
Yeah.
you won't see it. So maybe if you go down to the Three Sisters, or you go to the one of the Mark Mills houses, or you go down to Frankfurt Lighthouse, or whatever you pick, any kind of mid-century house will do, basically.
Okay.
Do one that's on the register, that might be.
and this one's not on
Like-
register.
Hmm?
This one's not?
Yeah, but you can't see it from the street.
Oh, you can't see it, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the 4.1.1.
The sisters down there, the 3 you can see from the street.
They'll come up again. So again, we'll get to see the whole thing in a second, hopefully. I mean, maybe not today, but maybe at
Oh,
next.
there's the great one on Scenic,
It's coming up. Yeah.
the same architect who built Ventana, built La Pente. His name is, just dropped it.
Don't worry,
Tip
you'll think of it.
my tongue. You know which one? Huh?
Not waiting,
No,
not
no,
waiting for the house.
no. It's the second north of 13th on Scenic.
It might be in here already, Marianne, and
Okay.
it'll jog your memory.
Really simple. I always used to think it was a Worcester, but it isn't a Worcester. It looks like a Worcester.
Do we agree with the public's comment about not illustrating the reuse, the components? Just to throw this in there, I don't care one way or the other, but the reason I thought this particular building, maybe if we zoomed onto the windows, if we wanted to illustrate it, these are original steel framed windows, which is fairly recognizable as an old window.
Yeah.
Because you can get them replicated, but it's very, very expensive and people don't do it.
I was just saying, when we find a house that's intact like that, typically we do actually strip and have it restored because it costs about half of a new steel window,
Mhm.
But I
And a
think
new steel window is made from a distance. You get now aluminum windows that look the same, but not when you're close up, and definitely not when you
When you
feel
move
it,
it.
when you move it. So
So should we
it's,
zoom in
it
or
is
should
to
we
be
eliminate it?
encouraged also from an environmental point of view.
For
So
sure.
it's
Yeah.
good to leave it in there, I
Yes,
think.
But I think,
absolutely.
I don't know if you could, to Anatoli's point though, like, I don't know if you can tell that from the picture. I think the
No.
words make that point just fine on their own. You
We don't need a
to make that
picture,
point.
yeah, I agree.
Is 411 even in the city limits? Where's that photo from?
It's on 7th, that's a good question. It's on 7th, it's right next to the Arch House, or a little bit, maybe 2, but it might be right over the line. It might be over the line in the county. Then ouch. All right, so we don't need it.
Okay, and
No,
then
that was
the
rather
upper left
emphatic.
is not in the city limits. That's Tor House.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think
it
that's-
looks, it
Yeah,
looks
we
like
need
it.
one
So
in
we
the
don't
CD.
care. Okay, we'll take it
Well,
out.
I think we should just recycle the images from
Yeah,
the
we're gonna get-
context
we
statement
gotta-
and
we
be
gotta stop
good. We
it.
don't need to reinvent the wheel there, yeah.
So we're gonna exit out.
Yeah, but we're gonna do that. We have a whole idea for this, so we're gonna do, it's gonna have a double page and it's gonna have just one statement on it, which is retained
Yeah,
built
but we're
on
gonna
it.
X this out.
Yeah, it's Xed. I've got it.
Okay, I just wanna know.
Because it's outside city limits.
Page 25.
25, back.
To the homework group, we're way ahead.
So, public comments, yes?
Yes, please.
Okay, the 4.2.4 actually belongs perfectly to me with the prior page, 3.5.1. So provide a variety of building, so this would, I thought it
Which
was.
one, sorry, which one do you like?
So that the bottom of the page on the left-hand side, so this is a mirror image of buildings.
The 4.2.4 at the
Yeah,
bottom?
yeah, correct. So doesn't this belong with a bad example of 3.5.2? So it's like, provide a variety of coated surfaces, building colors along a block. That's like both design and color, it's all the same. So I think this picture belongs with section 3.5.2 as a bad example. So I just, it's a recommendation, use it or not.
Okay.
So that one jumped out at me. That's it for my comment.
Thank you, Nancy. Other comments on this page? from the
Yeah,
public?
the photos house on 4.2.1 doesn't go with the house next door to it, nor do I see it as a Carmel traditional architectural home.
No, now we're on this one. This one is in Carmel, 4.2.1, she's talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, the photos house, the brown one.
We're okay, one of the things we decided is if it's an X, we don't care if it's outside of. So just remember that as you're commenting. So, but for things that are good, we want them to be in town.
This is not continuing the neighborhood feel at all.
Which one?
4.2.1, nor is it representative of Carmel.
So remember
Let
what we're
alone
trying
the
to stress,
neighborhood.
to avoid uniformity and the appearance of speculative development and to promote individual artistic expression, differentiate a new building's plan, massing, and overall design from that of nearby and abutting buildings. So, just address, if you could, that aspect. Does it illustrate that or not illustrate that? And then please, everybody else weigh in as well.
Sorry, is it the X picture that you're talking about, Carol,
No.
or the check, as in yes?
The yes one, the
yes
photos
one, okay.
building is.
That's
yes,
on
the-
Lobos, right?
Uh-huh, right across from the Lobos Park.
Yes, right, it's Lobos Park.
And the one right next to it is a traditional Carmel-looking house, as is the rest of the street, pretty much.
Okay, any other comments on these?
I would like to make some comments, since the historic context statement didn't happen in a way that the public could participate in that discussion. I'd like to raise the question.
Let's 6 and 7 pictures here, please, I'm begging.
Okay, when can I have my comments?
On the 7
On the
pictures now.
discussion that took place before we turned to this page?
Oh, well, that was, we just went over that. We went
Yeah,
over the-
where we were talking about the historic context statement?
Every bubble. Oh, you want rebuttal to the prior topic?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
go ahead.
Okay, so the first question I have is, are we automatically assuming that the historic, everything that is cited in the historic context statement should be shown as a possible design for the village of Carmel? I think that question should be asked first.
That's all it is. It's showing the heritage. It's just telling people what has come before, that's all.
Okay, let me go to the point. Carol and I visit every planning commission meeting. We see them all. Okay? And Brandon, I think, would be the other person who has that same experience. There is a repeating pattern that happens in virtually every meeting, almost every meeting now. And that is the modern architect defends his modern design by saying, no, half-century modern. And the litany is very repetitive. It's the Henry Hill houses, it's the Mark Mills houses, it's the Frank Lloyd Wright, half-century modern. Maybe once in a while it's Bay Area modern, right? And Planning Commission says, yep, half-century modern, fine, and it goes right through. Most of the modern style houses that have been approved in the last 3 months, that's the way they happen. Most architects, they're going to come before the Planning Commission. I would say most, I'm thinking at least 51%, are going to want modern houses for their clients. If you do the math, that means half of the homes that will be approved by the Planning Commission will be modern. And this ain't going to be Carmel anymore.
Well, Neil, could you just, please, if you're rebutting what the plan is to show the architectural heritage, if you have a counter proposal for not showing the architectural heritage of the town, is that what you're proposing?
I'm saying, what can we do to prevent, there is an enormous back pressure to do modern design in Carmel. What can we do to keep that channel down?
This is a conversation on so that's another day, another topic. We shouldn't go down this road right
If you
now.
want, I was just saying, if you wanted to rebut, we have this plan of having a full spread of historical styles in that's what the steering committee has decided, we're gonna take a look at that. If you have an issue with doing that, just say it, and then we have to move on to the next thing.
Okay, yeah, I have an issue. I think some of the styles in the historic context statement should not be provided as a recommended option for a design
These are
plan.
not recommended options, just so you know, this is just a glimpse at what has come before, that's all it is.
But comment
By the fact that it's in the design guidelines, that will say to whoever that that's an acceptable design.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
All right, so let's go back to Back to the Future on page 25. Are there any comments aside from what we heard on 4.2.1 about the juxtaposition of the older, actually the one on the right is a newer house than the one on the left, I believe. But is there any other comment on these 7 photos?
Yes.
Right.
It's
You go ahead.
4.2.1 red. I don't think it's a good example of bad example. Because just looking at it, it's
Yeah.
not as obvious as we have 2 pictures down at the bottom of the page, right? So I'm not sure if it need. I mean, if it's a good example of a bad example.
I feel the same way because I put a question mark next to it, like, what is it supposed to not, what's wrong with it? I don't see what's really wrong with it.
Probably we can arguably talk about the mass of that White House, but it's not as, it's not obvious that it's bad.
I actually know what this is, and I think Anatol is right. I think what it is, we're trying to show on the left-hand side of each house, there's this like pushed forward balcony, and on the right-hand side of each house, it kind of steps back, and there's a 2-story element. So it looks similar in style, but I think if this was a picture from straight on the front, you might be able to tell that.
Yeah, it's a bad picture, absolutely. The question is, would it be good enough if it was a good picture? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Okay.
So are we gonna consider? Well, let's wait. We're
I-
waiting for the public comment.
I have a question about 4.2.2, the photo. I think that's the building across from the Mission.
Yes.
And you said good pictures must be in Carmel. Is that considered in Carmel?
Yep.
They've annexed that area, okay. And then, can you explain for me on 4.2.3 what architectural languages means?
Can we do that another time, like offline?
Oh,
You mind? Just-
because everybody else knows it except
Well, we had a
myself.
discussion, you might not have been here, but we did go through that at some length in an earlier, so it's several months ago now, so you'll be totally forgiven for not.
Okay, I could email you. About how many languages are there? About how many?
Probably infinite.
Okay.
And so, any other comments on these photos?
Oh, I'm sorry. Nothing else from the public? Okay, back to the steering committee. Melanie?
I mean, this is like one of the most extreme examples, I think, of 4.2.1 of the statement.
Good or bad? The green or the red one?
The green one, as you're saying.
Yeah, excuse me, I'm sorry. I mean, to me, it's, I just, sure, we don't want uniformity, but, I mean, I guess if you really want to avoid uniformity, this really does it. But, I mean, I just have a feeling that even putting this in here with an X on it,
You mean the-
we understand why it's there. But, I mean, is it something that the public, if a resident comes or, or a new designer to town, that they're, that this is gonna really work the way we want it to work? I don't know. I just throw that out as a question.
And again, think about this is a very bad picture, so I just don't know, it doesn't show much of the vegetation, doesn't show much of the landscaping, I don't know if it's it could be unsalvageable, but I'm just throwing that out there. Don?
I'm sorry, I have to disagree, Melanie. This house has been cited many times as a cottage, strictly a simple Carmel cottage, and it's very good. And
Which one?
The one on the left.
the one on the left,
Photos.
Okay, well,
it's
I haven't.
often cited as an example of what.
But I haven't seen it in its context. I
Okay.
haven't seen it, so
I'm
I mean,
surprised,
it's
yeah.
really hard for me to, to positively
Okay.
respond. That's it. But you've had the advantage of seeing it. Have you seen it, Mary?
Yeah. I think they're better. I don't mind it. I like your house better, and I think that he has better projects. It's really good from the massing, but the materiality, I don't know.
Right.
It's
redwood
you
siding.
could get picky on it, but definitely it's good. It's a good
But I
example.
think
of
remember
massing,
though
but
that this 4.2.1 is trying to prove a point.
yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
was trying to get
Yeah.
to.
Not do we
So-
like the house or not like the
Yeah,
house.
exactly. Yeah, and I think
No,
So-
that wasn't my point, whether you like the house or not, because I don't know. I'm just judging from what I'm seeing here, and that is what the people who are looking at this document are going to do.
that's
And
a
so-
good point.
So
Yeah.
that's all
I
I'm
think if you
saying.
see it, you see it as a charmer.
So if this,
So-
at the very least, it sounds like it should be reshot,
Yeah.
so we can see if it salvages it, but,
Okay.
but Doug,
Yeah.
any thoughts?
On this page,
Yeah, or on this photo or
there was
anything?
a comment made that it was decided that good photographs would all be in Carmel and we could use bad photographs. I don't remember doing that. I think that's a bad example. We have enough bad construction in town that we ought to use it. That's why we're here to do design guidelines.
But is anything springing to mind when you look
Yeah,
at these?
4.2.4, 2 on the bottom, and then 4.2.1 is on Bayview, it's out of town.
Wait, which one? Oh, 4.2.1 is out of town.
It's on Bayview.
Deliberately.
I think Doug's making the point that he doesn't think we should do that we should have bad examples in town.
What about our friends and neighbors that we know who we pick their houses and they come in and go, how did I end up being on the X list? We don't care?
You're talking about the upper 4.2.1, right? Yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
These are the Carmel-by-the-Sea design guidelines. We ought to stick to the corporate limits, good and bad.
Yeah.
Well, I have some McMansion thoughts, but nobody else is gonna be happy.
That's okay, let's hear them.
Well, no, I mean, I could throw them in here. There's some stuff that presents that way. Marianne, what were you gonna say?
If we say continue Carmel's tradition of architectural diversity, I think we should only use good new buildings in order to demonstrate that we are continuing the heritage and not using an existing building, because that doesn't demonstrate the point.
I like that. Yeah.
So, and I think there are some very good, no,
The Rainy
nothing
project,
stays, yeah.
Rainy project.
So I think there's some really good examples of good projects that build on different styles, yours is plaster. Then there is the Justin Polly one on 11th Street that's board and bat, that is LEED certified. There's some really good examples that I think we could pick for different styles that are new buildings but are good examples of it.
So
And where is this bottom left?
this is all, those
Where is
two
the
are off
bottom left?
internet.
Looks like marina.
Stock photos from.
So I was just saying that you can use it. This is so terrible. What is it? Okay, yeah.
But this, I have to say, I might make an exception, but I'm not sure, to your, I like your point very much, but the 4.2.4, don't do a speculative development. There's not many places that it's easy to photograph that show that well.
I mean, we do have McMansion stuff like that in town, but I agree that is
It's touchy.
touchy. But I think, I don't know, maybe you don't do any negative examples, or I don't know how you handle that. I mean, this is an amazing picture. It's so bad, and it demonstrates everything. The canyon between the buildings, the landscaping, the garages, no varied setbacks. It addresses all chapters.
This photograph,
One picture.
It just, exactly. Always you can put that X picture of each chapter.
we could go down across from the Canola estate at those houses that were built, and we would get this sort of photograph.
It's very hard to photograph. I'm just saying, I think you should try.
Yeah.
That's the example to try, but you can't get far enough away. I mean, maybe the campus folks, the Hesses will let us go in their yard and you know, go up a ladder, that kind of thing.
Yeah, this could be a photography issue. I mean, we could get some nicer lenses.
Drones. Get
We'd love to pick on Forest Street here,
Do,
so that's good. And then, let me ask you, Marianne, so this 4.2.2 with a thatched roof, I don't know when that was built, but that is, what I thought might be somewhat new, and to your point on that, is that it is clearly not of the era then we would really do a thatched roof. So here's somebody doing a thatched roof in modern times, but maybe that's not old, it's too old for you.
I think so, because I think what we are hearing, is, and what I agree with, there's too much bad modern architecture in town. And what we were trying to show is good modern architecture, meaning good contemporary work that some of it is more modern and some of it builds on traditional styles, but it's well executed and well done. And I think in terms of addressing because I think that's a good point, that we wouldn't want a massing of any of those styles because Carmel's heritage is eclectic. So in the early 90s, of the Mandarago times, if anybody remembers that, we had masses of these 150 different gables and window boxes and different shaped shutters, and one was worse than the other. It was the same as we have now for the modern buildings, which all you shove 3 boxes together, call it modern, and there you go. And it's equally bad, And so I think as times come and go, there's different masses of really bad stuff going on. And the historic context statement actually is, I think, an area how you can address that, because it shows the variety and there's not an overwhelming density of mid-century, and there's not an overwhelming density of Mission, and there's not an overwhelming density like in Santa Barbara, right? It's mostly Mission. And there's not an overwhelming dentity of Normandy style like in Solang or whatever that thing is, the Solang. So
can you put your thinking cap on, Marianne, and if you have, I couldn't agree with you more that this should be a different take for this page and for 4.2, but we gotta find those examples. And that's not that easy again. I mean, you might have them all, but you can no longer than I have, so.
I do have a list of probably a plaster, board and bat, a good modern, a craftsman, a new craftsman. I don't know. You'd have to help me with that.
That'd be a good one.
You know a new craftsman, a good one?
I think we had one like
Okay,
6 months ago that we finalized, actually.
okay,
Let's get that list together. So
Okay.
we can go photograph it.
Right, I'll do
And
that.
any contributors to that list would be great. We want high quality building homestead heritage. Okay, you guys who
26.
worked ahead, we're coming at you. Use traditional, at the top, go again, use traditional natural building materials.
And then we have standing seam roof.
The whole page at the same time. Does the public, notwithstanding committee, have any thoughts on these 3, 4, 5,
I'm,
call it 7?
I'm generally in favor of everything, the lower group of photos to me, I'm pretty happy with. All of them, I think. In the top 3 photos at the top, I like the middle one. On the one on the left, I'm wondering, since we actually have a stone called Carmel stone, and it's actually called out in the design guidelines and in the general plan, would it be possible to use a Carmel stone example of a stone wall? And then the other question is the far right roof. I suppose that's not supposed to be metal, but it looks like metal. Am I not understanding what's going on there?
Let's get it, I'll take your question, let's go around and see what other comments there are from the public on this page.
Because the design guidelines said that metal is not appropriate in
Right.
any designs in Carmel. Metal
I
roofs.
thought the garage or the lid of a garbage can, it's, that look of the metal kind of corrugated roofs are not desired. So I wondered why this was a green check as a good picture.
Yeah.
Because there's a house on Santa Lucia that was built just a couple years ago, and it's got all the different roofs of the different kinds of like a dumpster dive, lid. That's the words people use.
Where's this building? Yeah, it's not that.
On Santa Lucia.
You know it? Oh, yes, of course, we know that is the.
So, is this really okay and allowed? Because it
So-
looks like metal.
No, it should be a red X.
It should be a red one, right?
Yeah, so make that a red X, and so this is not what it should be.
So, yeah, I wanna add, just add some context here. So read 4.3.1, because this is a conversation that's been had throughout the year and a half, 2 years we've been doing this. We are talking about language in the proposed revised design guide. We're talking about use metal roofs only if they're detailed simply, have narrow flat panels, devoid of corrugations or striations, use genuine field, install standing flat seams. So we have this steering committee and members of the community have come. We have added language into the proposed design guidelines moving forward that are more accepting of metal roofs when they're done the right way. So that's something to keep in mind.
I would also like to remind everybody that there have been a couple of discussions by the planning commission themselves regarding the issue of standing seam roofs. And this was brought up again by Stephanie Locke in a meeting before this, and she said we were going to talk about standing seam roofs because we're concerned about them continuing and being used so extensively. That discussion has never happened. There remains a concern with standing seam metal roofs. And in my own perception, if we get enough of these, this is going to look like Squaw Valley.
Any other comments from the public on these photos for this page?
Yes, 4.3, the dumpster lid roof, as I've been calling it for many months. Now we've come out with all kinds of materials, as you know, that are metal, that really take on fires and so forth, that are safe, or composition roofs that are much nicer looking. Like on the next page, 4.4.4, they have actual tiles showing, and it's much more looking like your traditional roof than this standing seam roof here. So I think the standing seam roof was brought in, maybe I'm wrong, when we started talking about fire danger, and that was the only thing available. But now we have all kinds of.
4.4.4
4.3, I don't like it.
Nobody likes 4.3 so far on the public. Anybody else on the public for these photos?
Yes.
For this page, yes.
4.3 metal standing seam roof. If it's not prohibited, then it would be probably better to give two pictures. One is with the green, which is shown here, and maybe it can be maybe smaller. And the second one with a bad example of metal roof. Then it will make sense what is better or what is worse. I mean, it's not ideal, I know, right? Many people hate metal roofs, but if it's not prohibited, it needs to be probably distinguished between good example and bad example of metal roof. And as corners of the windows, again, the same take from me, the very right with cross. It's hard to see on that small picture what's wrong with this window because all the metal clad, is it vinyl clad or is it metal clad? If it's metal clad, it can be a good quality metal clad window.
I see what you're saying. The size of the picture.
Right.
You can't tell what clad is. We all know because we
Right,
designed.
exactly, right.
But somebody new might not
So
understand it because, good point.
I'm not sure if it will be confusing for people looking at this picture.
This is a tough one to illustrate just
Tough,
because
yes.
you have to find photos that actually are cut away, that are comparable. This is like a whole internet search I did, but hopefully the words
Yeah,
are
the
the
main
rule.
pictures, yeah.
But it's well, let's
Yes.
These are, I don't think there's bad examples. Could they be a little bigger?
Yeah, for sure. Any other comments from the public on this page for the photos, besides the standing seam thing?
Nobody feels the way I do about Carmel Stone.
So I don't.
Well, we commented, we supported you.
Yeah, we support you in
Yes.
that.
All right.
I don't understand what about 4.3.6 is not good. Is it the design? Is it? It's just not real clear. It doesn't jump out to me. I mean, it's kind of tacky, but so I get that.
It's a final brush door. My guess is that's a final brush door.
See, it based on our assumption, right? Because
Yeah.
when we know what it is, right,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a bad example.
Yeah.
If people don't know, it might be confusing. That's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
No visible plastic elements. I mean,
Hmm.
It says it though, yeah.
Yeah.
is that what you're talking about, Nancy?
I'm just looking, the picture doesn't jump out to me other than its tackiness as to why it's bad.
It's
You mean the
plastic.
4.3.6?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And I think,
Sometimes show plasticness maybe in a photo, but maybe
I
they
think-
will get closer, actually, to see the plastic. I don't know.
yeah, maybe if it's bigger, I understand what
Yeah.
Nancy's saying.
Picture, yeah.
Maybe it doesn't need a picture.
Yeah, it's either a plastic door or it's not. You don't need a picture.
I would vote for no.
That's
no
an
picture.
idea.
I would vote for no picture, because it's
Okay,
not
let's bring it
clear.
back to the steering committee for this page, 26.
Do we have to shut up now?
Yes, you do. I know, it's hard.
I agree with Neil about having a photograph of Carmel Stone.
Yeah, I agree also.
And this is not Carmel Stone. Okay,
No.
thank you. I wasn't sure. Okay.
It's really hard to find these days, so it's not a lot of people are gonna
It's,
go with it,
but we
it
have
is-
pictures around town.
Yeah, you can use Santa, you can
That's a
use Santa
Maria
Rosa stone.
which is basically the same thing.
Yeah.
You can get it,
What did you just say?
The Santa Maria, it comes out of a
Yeah,
different quarry, but
yeah.
it actually looks
Yeah.
the same. It has a little bit more orange in it. It's not quite as light as the original Carmel Stone,
It's
but
actually structurally better
it's,
too, right?
it's a
Isn't it?
little
Yeah.
denser, yeah.
It's-
But it basically it would do the same thing as Carmel Stone. It looks like
Let's put a
Carmel
picture, that was intended, just so you know, to put this to rest. That was supposed to be Carmel Stone.
Yeah,
My
it's
bad.
You
So
failed.
I did fail.
You-
And so I will find real Carmel Stone, put it in there. I don't know where that came from.
Go to City Hall.
Yeah, right, exactly. Any other comments? So let's take it one by one for the steering committee.
May I?
Yes, or go.
I have to leave in
Please.
2 minutes.
Okay,
I
you
just
go
quick
first
say-
then.
say my spiel. So I agree with Carmel Stone. I think for the metal roofs, what's so important with standing seam is the proportion of the seam to pan width, right? So if they go the cheapest route and they do the 16-inch that comes off the shelf, that's the cheapest. That doesn't work on smaller scale buildings, so you should do at least 12 or 9 is even better. And I think there are a couple good examples in town on cottages maybe we just take a picture of that. In the
Which
roof,
ones, Mary?
in, there's one, it's one of the white ones. What is that, San Antonio, or one up? Let me try to, I think when I drive now back to the office, I might drive by and
Okay.
snap a picture and send it to you. So, and then I think we need to face the fact that we live in a forest, we have to have metal roofs really to save our buildings. It's
Before I let you
think
go,
it
Marianne,
just-
can you, because you have to go, will you flip the page over and just
I
give me
saw
your
that
thoughts?
there's a lot of comments. on
Okay,
that,
but
yeah.
please, just do it real quick.
And
We'll
I-
make an exception here
I
to the
would,
format.
I would not show any of illustration of the windows.
Okay?
That's, the design guidelines, I think, are supposed to be for the next 10 years or 20 years. There's so much development on the material side that I wouldn't go
Okay.
ahead and illustrate that.
Okay.
Um,
So we're just giving a little hall
I
pass
agree
to
with all the green check marks.
Mhm.
I think they all look good.
Okay. And how about the bad check marks?
They're sure bad.
They're
yeah.
bad. Okay. All right, so you're okay. Okay, thank you for that. We love
Sorry
your work
for having
ahead.
to
No, I
excuse
appreciate it,
myself.
Marianne. And you have homework, which you
I
don't
do,
usually
I have it
have.
all noted.
So thank you so much.
Thanks
Only
for
one
coming.
other 15 minutes anyway, so.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
that's true.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you. Okay, so now we're back to the steering committee, again with, I take Marianne's points, we need better photos. Do you guys agree with eliminating the window and the plastic garage door photo? Don't need to illustrate that? It's obvious.
I
that-
think if we could, maybe the thing on the garage door is simplicity. I know we talked about simplicity
Yeah.
before, but get rid of those damn tacky
Oh,
windows.
But we're also not allowed to have plastic,
Yeah,
Yeah,
which most of the doors are probably.
yeah. I mean, since most of these things are right out in front, it's one of the first things you see on a cottage. There is nothing worse than a cheap garage door. I mean, garage doors, I just have this thing about garage doors should be, custom.
So do you want to,
go.
do you want to keep a photo, because to emphasize the point?
Well, yeah, I'd like to keep this and
And then add a
just,
good one?
and have staff emphasize that, we don't want anything like this. We want something that's unique to the cottage and adds quality and is made out of, natural
blends in with the
materials.
rest of the house.
Yes,
Do you
it
want a
goes with the
custom-
house.
Do you want a green check also? So instead of
Yes.
subtracting an illustration, Melanie's adding, and I've seen nods, wants to add a good one
Yes.
next to the bad one. I think that's
Yeah.
this is easy to find. This is an easy.
Oh, yeah, it's all over the place.
Yeah, both are easy to find, some
Yeah.
really good ones.
And they
some
just
bad-
trash up,
Yeah.
what could be a lovely little cottage, just trash it up with something like this.
Okay, so we're not letting go of that, unless the rest of the steering committee disagrees with Melanie. I think people who feel really strongly in the steering committee, if they don't have major objections, should get their way. So I'm letting, we should let you get your way, but unless you guys disagree forcibly.
Nope.
Doug? Okay. And what do you guys think about the other stuff? We're subbing out the Carmel stone. I think the steering committee has decided to basically, when we look back at the history, regulate the metal roofs so that they're good instead of being crapo. And this is, to your point, why we need to have a bad example in there.
Yeah. I'm
That-
just so worried, all of you, I'm just so worried. There are alternatives with fire prevention. And I think that we don't want to end up looking like, Tahoe.
But the planning commission has to make sure these don't proliferate.
Yeah,
That's
but
their job.
they're not doing their job. Have
Yes,
you been
I
to
know.
one
Oh,
lately?
I know, I'm just saying that is,
Half of the designs are metal roofs.
right, well,
Yeah,
that,
and there are other options.
yeah.
I think we're making a huge mistake here. I really do. I feel very passionately about this.
And the other gentleman on the steering committee? What are your
What's
feelings?
the question?
how's your passion level about regulating metal roofs versus, and we're not here to debate whether we're having metal roofs or not. I suppose we're just here to debate whether to illustrate a good and bad metal roof, because that's a decision we already made in the past. So, do you
If
think
that's
we should
possible, I think that's a good thing.
illustrate a good and bad?
Yeah.
And Doug? I think we need to take care of this problem in another way, but
Well,
that's a
then-
discussion for another
yeah,
day,
then-
I'm afraid.
I think we really need to do it, because the planning commission complains about it, they don't like metal roofs, and yet they do nothing.
Let's figure that out and how we can address that. Let's stick to the photos. We have one more page, and it's the page. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, Don, did I cut you off?
It doesn't relate to this page exactly, but this page has the shingle style house. It's an excellent house. That should be on the previous pages
What is
as
this
an
house?
example.
Down on
I mean,
Monteverdi and Eighth.
Monteverdi and A.
Yeah, it's.
a good photograph of that.
Very good.
It's,
Northeast.
That is a
there you
nice
go,
house.
it's perfect.
And this is something that would be a somewhat recent interpretation of a historic style, is that
Not
what you're
necessarily.
thinking? Is this, do you know when this
It's a
building
good
was built,
house.
Brandon?
Yeah.
I don't.
I'm wondering if it falls into the category that Marianne was looking for, which is something new.
Oh, I think it's older.
Is it older?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's older.
Really
Alright.
old.
Yeah, it's got a nice stone foundation.
Okay, all right.
But still, it makes you point.
Yeah.
You know, if it were a new house, it would be a style that is,
A
does have
representative.
elements of modern, but it's comfortable in the traditional setting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the rainy house, which I think is on, it's a shape, it's a newer shape, and it's kind of like a modern cottage, it's really nice.
Let's, relook for that.
Yeah. Everybody wants to fix that, but we're trying to encourage people to do stuff like that.
Where is it, Brandon?
You can ask me, I wanna say it's down on Lincoln.
Is it the house that's 30% underground?
Yeah,
That's the newest, yeah.
yeah.
I
It's
think
nice.
it is, I
Yeah.
think it is Lincoln. I toured it on the home, when we
Yeah,
had
they
the
have
home
home tours.
tours, yeah. It's very interesting.
Now, 4.4, so page 27, back to the public, right? So our last page, this page is entirely about how to do artificial material well, so that they look as good as they can if they're man-made. So you see some bad man-made, you see some good man-made, you see some good natural that don't fall into that.
So there's two things I don't understand. 4.4.4 is bad, although it looks fairly attractive to me, versus 4.4.4.
Second,
Yeah.
second
the
line
jumbled-
from the bottom.
the jumbled-
Second line from
yeah,
the bottom.
The jumbled up one with all the different variances, that's
Shingles.
more attractive than the one to the left of it. And why is that?
Okay, we're taking your question and we're gonna just get a reaction from everybody at the public
Yeah, yeah.
level here.
I think because it looks more cottage-like, the rumpled one. It looks
Okay.
more unique, custom. Yeah.
Rumpled and
I
unique.
believe in,
I like that.
intention,
Remember to read.
yes, intention was
Interesting.
different, yes, and that's,
Always read the number that corresponds.
This is materials,
Yes.
not look.
so if,
Oh,
So
sorry,
always read
okay.
The big
Yeah.
number on the material tells you what it's talking about, so any comments?
if I may
other comments?
chime in, yes. It's also about the, how public will take these pictures looking without knowing the material, it's just the quality of pictures, right? I will start with the second line. First was obvious, right, top two, and then the second line is pavers. And the right-hand side, green, maybe if it's flagstone, it's hard for me to say. Maybe it needs to be like smaller scale to show the natural pattern of the stone, because I don't really know if it's an intent of this picture. Next line is good example of concrete, I would say, for contemporary with a wood pattern, and that. And the second from the bottom, I know you wanted to show the cement material, like artificial shingles, but actually, if it's a good quality shingles with rough sawn and painted, it will look exactly the same. So I don't think it's a good example here to represent artificial material, because it will be confusing for people who are not trained, who has no knowledge of material, architectural practice, etc. So they might look as maybe wrong pattern or something else, but not material. And the same applies to horizontal siding at the bottom. I think it's the same possible mistake. So picture doesn't show the wrong side of material.
I didn't
They look
see.
identical
I
almost.
know, I
Yeah,
didn't
but-
see what the
But
difference was.
I know intent because maybe I'm on architectural side and
Do you think if we took a closer up photo,
no, it will not help. I don't think picture will help. It needs to be stated and
stated and no
right.
picture?
So no use or highly not encouraged. What's a better word? It's highly not encouraged to use artificial material.
Okay, look, I won't comment. So any other comments from the public on these material illustrations here before we go back to the steering committee?
So I would just add on the roofing line, the second row from the bottom.
That's not roofing, by the way, that's all
Yeah.
siding.
Oh, that's siding?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's the side of the house.
okay. That's side, okay,
Oh.
I suppose.
Oh, I thought it was roofing.
It looks
I
like
thought it was
roofing.
Yeah.
too. I really thought it was
Really
roofing.
for our point, but it happens to be wall.
And the two bottom ones are siding out.
But
obviously,
would
too.
it
Yeah.
apply as a bad example if it was roofing?
Yes.
So a lot of the composite roofs, the slabs that you get that they're gonna put on your roof will look exactly like this 4.4.4 to the left. The red mark, the red one. They'll look exactly like that. I think our house has probably this on it. You know, so maybe our house has got a lot of stuff that doesn't fit.
Your grandma, everybody here.
Yeah, I know, right. So I don't know that you can get a composite roofing material that doesn't have pattern repetition in look.
Mansion is a good example, but I mean, not that you're.
Yeah, so I just question.
Look out the window, so this is a new roof on City Hall, that's a
Yes.
comp shingle. This is basically like the most expensive, diverse roof you can buy in a comp shingle. So, but I think you're right though, Nancy, like the roof versus siding is a little bit different, because you usually have a little more like interaction with the siding than you do with the roof.
But that's asphalt, so that doesn't have a wood pattern on
It's
it.
composite stuff,
Right.
yeah.
So
Well,
asphalt is
she-
a very tricky thing.
Yeah,
to
she was
do.
saying composite, I thought you were talking about composite shingles, is that?
No, I'm talking these tar base-ish thing, like this.
Yeah.
I'm talking like
These
this.
don't have wood grain at all, usually. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen that.
So this is okay in the go forward model, right? Okay, and so the what makes this good is that it's got a little bit more variation.
The variation, it's got a high relief, so this is.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
thicker, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, ours is thick, I mean, our house. so
At first glance, it looks like an old shake roof.
And so, and the colors too, so if you look at our design guidelines, when it
Yeah.
talks about, these types of roofs, the colors have to emulate some sort of natural material. Like, we wouldn't be able to put a black shingle.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And in
yeah,
fact,
yeah,
at the planning commission, we
yeah.
were just talking about planning commission, at last month's planning commission, Jake, we referred a roof material to the planning commission because they wanted a black comp shingle roof, and we said, no, we're not gonna approve that. And they said, okay, we're gonna take you to the planning commission. And the
Right.
planning commission backed staff up and said no to their black shingle roof.
Yeah, okay.
Because the color isn't right, even though they had the right, they suggested the right pattern and relief, the wrong color was wrong. So there's multiple factors in the roof.
Okay.
Looks like a good choice.
Yeah,
One more.
so this, I suppose the difference between this is that it's the continuity, this is the exact same freaking color in this particular example, the one on the left. So
Still shingles,
there's
second
the
line.
shingles, it's all the same color too. In nature, you'd get some variation, for
So you have
instance.
to look, you have to read the thing. Do not use manufactured materials that fake or mimic natural or other materials in their textures or finishes, including machine-stamped faux wood grains. Use cast concrete only with non-uniform handcrafted patterns such as those provided by genuine
Okay.
wood formwork. That 4.4.4 is about mimicking natural materials, and we have decided, the steering committee has decided, no. We will not be mimicking
use the same stamp.
It's
graders.
placed.
They're the same
placement.
stamp, and that's
Yeah.
not, humans might not know this consciously, but they know it unconsciously. They walk by and they think, that's not real, that's not from the forest.
I agree.
Uh-huh.
So this is, and again, I do think that this type of sheet is gonna require some training of the planning commission, because this is a stricter standard than we have had in the past in this town. This is one thing we have changed. And we are recommending that we go to a stricter level with this.
Yeah,
We
okay.
didn't change a lot materially in this, but this is one thing that changes. So therefore, if people are going to misunderstand, and this is just gonna be a guide, I think, to help the planning to explain to themselves and explain to the applicants and themselves. So,
Right.
now you're seeing the
Enough
same
there.
thing in the bottom two rows. You're seeing one in a shingle version and one in a siding version. And the stamped one is on the left with a stamped fake wood pattern, and the non-stamped, well, one of, this is a question for you guys, I think, and I don't know, it's the public done, I don't wanna go on.
Any more public comment on 27?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so third row down on the left, 4.4.4, and this says it's okay, that looks very industrial to me, and I pulled up information about concrete. It's very ecologically not a good thing, and I don't think we should be promoting concrete because of that alone, but it also, in this, looks very cold and industrial to me.
Any other comments
Uh,
on that, or
Carol?
anyone? Neil?
I want to reiterate Carol's comments. We have a lot of modern structure. They love gray and they love concrete. They just love it. And so the whole house is built out of concrete. Is this going to allow somebody to do that? You know, concrete walls, and concrete everything? Or is there some way to limit that in some way? As far as the other photographs, top row I think is great. Second row, I do notice well, these are meant to look like an old style, but it's made out of modern materials. So I guess in that regard, it's not what we want, because that's what we're saying, right, Victoria?
Yeah.
And I really like that, so I want to stay with that. And then on the second row up from the bottom, the one on the left, if we took a different angle of photo, would it look less like a roof and less fool people?
Yeah.
If we just came up a little bit with that one. And then I think I agree with really liking this conversation, actually. Thank you.
We don't want to move.
Yeah.
So, okay, are we done public, guys?
Well, the very bottom, what did we decided on that? I can't tell the difference between those two.
It's a
With the-
very tough photo.
There was a thought about not doing it. That might, but it'll leave it in
And
words.
you know, here's another thing, you guys, when you look on the computer, which most people will be doing, then you can zoom in and see all you like. So just so you know, these are much better on the screen.
So the
By
stamping.
the way, these are very quality photos. I want to, whoever's doing this, it's a really nice
But it's
job.
not as good as the screen.
Yeah, right.
These are high-res photos, and they will be high-res photos, I assume, at the end, so you'll be able to zoom in and actually see what we're looking at here.
Yeah, because in 6 months we won't have paper.
Okay, so, thank you, Sherry. We could talk about languages later, if you like. Okay, okay, ring me up. So then, back to the steering committee for this final page. We are at 4:01. Let's see if we can do it quickly. Thoughts? Don?
I'm sorry to take this position, but I object strongly to the 4.4.4 green. Why don't we just have a good natural shingle? This gimmicky random pattern, I think could be suggestive of terrible situations.
So that is a natural wood house, this 4.4.4, and I will tell you before, to preempt this conversation, I think I made a mistake by putting, if you look at the right-hand column, the second one down and the fourth one down are actual natural materials.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the pattern. The gimmicky.
Right, but that's actually just an old house here. It
I don't
does-
care.
Okay, you don't care.
This picture is
You don't like it, okay.
absolutely not.
All I'm saying is I think it's coming out anyway because this sheet is my bad. It's kind of like Marianne's global thing about whether it should be a new house or an
There should
old
be no
house.
natural
There
materials
should
on
be
this
no
page.
natural materials on this page. And the second one down is actually Carmel stone, trying to show that that's what it really looks like. It doesn't look like the fake one left, but really it shouldn't be there at all because it's a natural material. This page is not about that. Also, the one you don't like is gonna go anyway,
Okay.
according to my new theory, because it's a natural material. It actually is a natural old cottage, and it probably and it was a funky old cottage, very cool looking if you saw it in person. I don't have any recollection of where it is, but it probably has to go.
Okay.
So let's talk about the rest, sorry, besides the other, so it would be the other 2, 4, 6, 8.
What is the third one down on the right? I don't understand what that is.
Third one down the right is a handcrafted patio, I believe. Is that usually the one with the X in it, the cross?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody hand pebbled the grout on a patio, and so that is a handcrafted, it is, let's see, which,
Handcrafted pattern.
use cast concrete only with non-uniform handcrafted patterns such as those provided by genuine wood formwork, or this one, which was actually hand-laid by a person who made their own patio.
Yeah, look at the wall that we say is historic.
Yeah.
Exactly, that's kind of like that.
Right. I kind of like it.
So somebody crafted this with their own hands, so that's why, you don't like it, Don? You wouldn't do it on,
Well, I didn't understand it. but-
okay. So, any other thoughts from the steering committee on this page? There's a lot of no's, and I can try to dig up some yeses that are not natural. That's probably what we need here. More yeses that are not natural, because we have mostly no's.
What does everybody think about 4.44? I just wanted to hear, you
You're
know.
talking about the lower left, because they're all 4.4.4.
No, there's, yeah, and then the 5, 4.445. Yeah, the
Applyment.
bottom line, guys.
You're right. What do we think about the bottom line? Do you think it's unclear, or what do you think?
No, I don't think it's unclear,
Mhm.
but, you know,
You guys, Doug and Don, thoughts
Yeah.
about the bottom line, the bottom of the 2 white siding
yeah.
photos?
I'm fine with them.
Fine with them, Don?
Don, what do you think?
So the one on
What do
the
you
right
think
is a
about these?
flat panel that doesn't have a fake wood print on it, and the one on the
These
left
two here?
has a fake wood print on it.
Are you okay with
No, if that's the case, yeah.
Well,
Actually, I
think she's
I
right,
thought
too. It could
the
be
one on the right
fine.
was natural, but I see it's manufactured.
Could be either. I mean, it's showing that you're not, but it could be 4. Are you trying to raise an issue, Melanie, because, or are you okay with it on the bottom line?
No, I'm okay with it, because we had a very distinct discussion that I remember
Okay.
about siding
Yeah,
being, you know, trying to mimic real grain.
right.
And there's nothing, I think, trashier. I mean,
Okay,
it just
okay.
looks
Things that are
trashy.
trashier than that, Melanie, I assure you, but
Nothing
What?
trash.
there are things that are trashier than that, I
Well,
promise.
I'm sure
The
there
garage
are, but
doors.
it is, I
The
mean,
garage
it
doors.
is. I
Okay.
don't dispute what you said, but this does not look like Carmel. And I don't think it will read when it's, you know, effectuated like
I
Carmel.
think we did okay, you guys, despite my surly attitude. I apologize.
No, you were fine.
Yeah, we need a,
Doug, you had a thought.
Is there any reference to colors, structural colors?
in the design guidelines, we have something in colors, yeah,
Yeah.
colors are show up in here somewhere.
What do you think, what are you driving at, Doug?
Well, on page 23, which we passed a while ago, 3.52, that's provide a variety in building color along the block. And unless we have a reference somewhere else, we want muted colors or earth tones.
Yeah,
I
we
think
got
it's-
it.
here we go, 5.5.
It's in details, I think.
Keep the overall color scheme muted to blend with forest palette,
Okay.
and there's a whole
I just
section.
wanted to make sure we didn't
It
go
would be
over that.
shocking if that wasn't in there.
Yeah, no, it's same, it's same.
I realized, I don't know what you guys think about this, during this conversation, it dawned on me, we're gonna have a page for sure that is gonna be about the okay, you know, how to use these. So we we should probably have a note of like how to use the pictures, because even with us sitting
Yeah.
down saying it over and over again, like, read this, that's how you tell what the picture's supposed to be.
Right, no, you're right.
That should
Yeah,
probably be more.
I think it can be confusing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
How to look at pictures, how
We might be
to,
able to finish this in the next meeting, so we got
Yeah.
about 10 pages next time and a good.
well, we have been doing a third
Yeah.
each time, so
Yeah.
that's, that we did it again. So
Yeah. Well, that's
congratulations,
very
everybody.
good.
Again, apologies for my
Thank you for-
bullying, et cetera.
thanks for good leadership.
Mean, surly leadership.
No, you were great.
I've never seen